right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City of Escondido Transportation Community Safety Commission. We're so glad that you're here today, members of the audience and community. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and do a roll call and just see who's here today. So we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Bill Durney.
Present.
Right. And Commissioner Castlebaum.
Present.
Perfect. And Commissioner Corey.
Present.
And Commissioner Grakowski. And Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
And Commissioner Spoonmore.
Here.
And myself, Commissioner Hatley is also here. So it sounds almost everybody's here today. That's great. So the next item on our agenda, besides calling this meeting to order, is the flag salute. So if everybody could stand, please, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, thank you for that. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for oral communications. If anybody has previously submitted anything that needs to be talked about, or if there's anybody in the audience that has something they'd like to communicate to us. Okay. Welcome.
I'm going to pull up a quick slide, but hi, commissioners. Thank you for all the work you do for our city, and thank you, city staffers, as well. I wanted to speak really quickly about the downtown couplet, Second and Valley, and the CATS process that we're currently looking at. Just a quick intro. I spoke 6 months ago. I live off of 6th Avenue with my wife and my six-week-old son, and we love walking downtown and frequenting our businesses downtown. We always walk down Calmia past the library and head to Esco Gelato. And previously, our route included going across the 3 one-way travel lanes on 2nd Avenue there, where we currently don't have a crosswalk. And I know we're talking about crosswalk policy a little bit later today. But I know that the CATS process is just looking at our active transportation strategy throughout all of the city and downtown. And I wanted to look at that couplet because I know we converted that from two-way streets back in the 60s. Throughout the 50s to the 80s, there was a big trend in the United States to convert the streets that are flanking downtowns into a one-way couplet system instead of two ways. And the thought at that point was, hey, let's speed up traffic through downtown. Downtown was declining. That's when malls were becoming really popular throughout the states. And what we've kind of seen exacerbated by Amazon and COVID is kind of this flip where malls are kind of going out and downtowns, and especially historic business districts like Grand, are really seeing a big revival. And what a lot of cities are doing now that they're seeing this reversal of trends is seeing, hey, these one-way couplets that surround our downtown actually speed up traffic to extents that isn't necessary for the average daily trips that we're doing. So if you go to the ADT traffic count, I think it might be the other slide, yeah. This is something I received from our engineering department. This shows the 2035 projected traffic counts. It'll be... And you'll see that Second and Valley there on top. And you'll see that none of the projected traffic counts actually exceed 20,000 ADT for 2035. And those are all well below thresholds that would actually require 3 lanes of one-way travel. So basically, we're overbuilt in our downtown, and it's really making the walkability of our downtown go down. And it's making it harder for our local small businesses to get pedestrian traffic from the neighboring downtown. So I would love for you guys to see if you could ask the consultant that's working on our CATs to look at whether those one-way streets are overbuilt and if a restoration back to the pre-1960s two-way traffic pattern would be helpful for our businesses and just general economic development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak during our oral communication period? Okay, at this point, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes from the July 13th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
A motion.
Okay, perfect. And a second.
Second.
All right, then we have those motions passed for the July 13th meeting. Okay, we'll go on to our items. Item number 4.
Excuse me? We need to vote.
Oh, we need to vote. Thank you very much.
And
Mr.
Commissioner,
Gurney?
if you,
Okay, all right, we have a first and a second.
and if you'd like, you can actually attempt to vote on the tablets that are in front of you.
Okay.
You just hit reset, and then you should have the opportunity to log your vote, selecting yay, nay, or abstain, and then you click submit, and your vote should be submitted. And then, Serena, once you see it coming through, you can display it.
Actually, that was intentional because I wanted to lead into the new tablet, so thank you very much. Okay,
What I don't see is Mr. Corey's screen.
all right, so the votes were tabulated okay with the new system?
We're
Everyone?
checking right now to
Okay.
verify.
Oh. Sometimes it's a little. So let me see. I think that worked. Yes.
You want to display them, Serena?
Is it good?
Motion approved, one abstain.
Okay. All right, perfect. And we will have some training in that, I believe, here shortly. Okay, then we'll go on to item number 4, which is the training on this new tabulation system and how to use the mic button. So we'll go ahead and just turn that over to the city clerk's office, Mr. Beck, for some training.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And by the way, I enjoyed your YouTube video that you had up there. It was very nice.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Honorable Chair Hatley, the rest of the commissioners, thanks for having me, Zach Beck, City Clerk. Just the training I want to provide was basically what you just did, actually. I want to have you give an opportunity to go through the process of utilizing the tablets. You hit the reset button, then you select your vote, and then click submit, and then it'll be logged in. And then as you'll see on your dais right now, there's that one button in front of you. You can check that to actually turn your microphones on. It's fairly simple and straightforward. You've already been doing that before, but just a quick reminder. And what's helpful about that is we're recording these meetings to the public and listen to them after the fact on the city's website. So anytime you speak, if you could make sure the microphone's turned on, that would be great. So any questions that come up during the course of the meeting, myself, Serena are here. But yeah, any questions you have?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And I can let you guys know too when the voting's open. So when you're ready to vote, I'll just say, oh, voting's open, and then you can refresh and vote, and it'll go. So.
Okay, item number 5, TCSC Chair Verbal Report on Annual Traffic Safety Report that was given to the City Council in August, a couple months ago, in August 23. So that was me. I was there at that City Council meeting, and staff member Ed Alberto was there, along with the captain of Escondido Police Department, Mark Peterson. And a lot of the information that was given is basically what we work on a quarterly basis here. And I think we've seen most of the statistics that they gave in one way or another worked into staff's reports when they present the reports to us on different items. So probably what I'll present to you, and I'll just present a little bit, is probably something that everybody's already seen just from us being commissioners on this committee. But I'll go over a few things from the presentation that was given. By the way, it was an excellent presentation. I enjoyed it, actually. It kept my attention. Statistics were very interesting. One of the statistics they gave, well, most what was talked about was just traffic-related issues. One of the statistics that was given was talking about blood alcohol level, which I like thinking about that as a former CHP officer. I like to think about, DUI arrests, and those kind of statistics interest me. So in 2022, they said that the average blood alcohol level for an arrestee, they came up with the statistics, was 0.189. The legal limit's 0.08, so that's over double the legal limit. But then the captain gave a couple of reasons why that might be, which I thought were interesting. It could be possibly that people are driving with just more alcohol in their system, but then he gave another reason, which I was kind of leaning toward, which would be that perhaps some officers that are out there, and we're talking county or statewide, aren't arresting the DUI drivers that are borderline or just doing like a little bit of lane weaving, a little bit something wrong. They have to be really abhorrently driving DUI for them to be caught driving DUI and arrested. Or some of these people could even be out of collision, so they were so DUI that they actually crashed their car. And because I'm sure probably collision DUIs might be included in that too. So I thought that was interesting. Then they gave us statistics out of 61 similar cities in 2020. The city of Escondido had the 7th highest alcohol traffic collisions. This is out of 61 cities. The 8th highest for fatal and injury traffic collisions. The 15th highest for pedestrian traffic collisions. The 24th highest for speed-involved traffic collisions. But on a positive note, we were the 2nd highest for DUI arrests. So the city of Escondido is on that, whether people are driving with more or less alcohol in their system. Escondido PD is doing a great job arresting the DUI, so we definitely appreciate that. And then just breaking down different types of collisions, this was taken over a course of 5 years between 2017 and 2022, the most recent statistics. For traffic collisions, 34% were property damage only, 39% were complaint of pain, 24% were visible injury, 2% severe injury, and less than 1% fatal. So that's good. I mean, if we don't want any traffic collisions, but if we're going to have a traffic collision, it's good that it was around the 2% range where it was severe injury or fatality. So, and the rest are at a much lesser degree. For 2016 to 2022, so a 6-year gap there, the traffic collision total for the city of Escondido was in either the high 800s or low 900s per year for collisions. It's been kind of consistent on that. And for the first half of 2023 compared to the first half of 2022, we're doing a lot better. First half of 2023, traffic collisions are down versus the first half of 2022. So that's a good streak and mode to be in, that collisions are down for the first half of this year compared to last year. Then also they talked about things that we talk about, the local roadway safety plan, hotspots for traffic collisions, which are things that, we talk about here quarterly, top collision locations, prioritizing a list of improvements. And I think we've talked about this, but just as a reminder, this kind of interests me, and some people might not think about it, but there is no speed limit on Center City Parkway. Well, I should say there isn't a speed limit. It's 65. 65 miles per hour is the maximum. There's no prima facie speed limit, which is less than 65 miles per hour on Center City. But the speed has been monitored on Center City between the signal lights in that area, and it seems like 45 miles per hour is about the average speed, which is what I would consider the prima facie speed probably for that roadway, the safe speed at 45 miles per hour. But due to it being a divided highway in the lanes, it does have a max of 65 mile per hour speed.
Just to let you know, the timing of the lights has been set to be about 40 miles an hour on the road. So the lights help control that speed.
Excellent, and that works out well. Excellent. The city was awarded the CTNA for Community Transportation Needs Assessment, and then with that we qualify for a $1.5 million voucher for projected projects that are needed or prioritized within that commitment. So it's always nice knowing about money coming in like that for different projects. You mentioned RAT, and I think in our agenda today we're going to be talking about that, and I almost thought when I previewed it that RAT stood for something else in our agenda than but what I got from the meeting was they're talking about red light violator detection units being under this program, and there's 2 grants that allow for funding for 15 additional devices. So I'm not sure if these are devices that are going on traffic signals and detecting red light violations or monitoring speed and other things that are going on, but we are getting more of those, and it's going to help with our traffic needs and plans. So,
Lieutenant Miller, you looked like you wanted to
oh,
talk about the
Yeah, I
red,
can-
about the red light. Yeah.
I can shed some light on that. They're red light indicator lights, and it's a tool that police officers can use to monitor an intersection. There's currently 2, one at Washington and Rose, another at Valley and Tulip. And what it does is it provides an indication of the status of a light that a police officer normally couldn't see from a location. So it's a tool that law enforcement is going to use to verify whether somebody has run the red light from a position where we normally wouldn't be able to see the red light.
So it actually, the officer is allowed to see if there's red light violations going through the intersection, just, it comes up on a screen or on a tabulation or something, or?
It's actually a small light that's attached to the signal light that allows you to see the condition of a light from a different vantage point. In order to prosecute a red light violator, you've got to be able to see the condition of the light. And this device it's fairly simple. It just replicates the red light from a vantage point where an officer can see it without being sitting in the middle of the intersection or watching the light itself.
Are officers then going and issuing citations for violations they're seeing on this camera?
Yes, particularly the traffic division. The two that we currently have were placed at intersections that were identified as having a high frequency of red light violations. So this additional 15 under the Office of Traffic Safety grant, we're going to put on the next 15 intersections where we've identified as being a higher instance of red light violations causing crashes.
Okay, that's excellent. Actually, that's really good news. I like that. It looks like there's funding for at least 15 more, so that's wonderful.
And from what I saw, I think it's can act like a red light that you see on the back of the red light.
Exactly.
So it's like looking at the back of the light, you see that the light's red, so you can be down the road and see the offender coming at you then.
Correct.
And also, if you're giving citations, sometimes there's not a safe place to park. I mean, we're going to park in the middle of the intersection, so maybe you could be like on a little side road or something and monitor it. Is that correct? Kind of pass the patrol car in a safer location while monitoring.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, then a little more talking about our what I would like to say our wonderful, I love Escondido PD, so just say our wonderful department. The total number of traffic enforcement stops between 2019 and 2022. Well, first I want to say in 2019, the department had 9 traffic officers. And due to different reasons, now they're down to 5 officers. But considering that they've had a depletion of almost 50% of their officers that are specifically or their specific work area that they're supposed to concentrate on is traffic, I think that it's looking good, even though we've lost, like 40% of the traffic officers. In 2019, 7,415 citations were issued. In 2022, 5,657, so about 1,900 less, but considering that there's 40% fewer officers assigned to the traffic division, I think everything's looking good and the workload is staying up there. And also, we talked about, education was talked about in the presentation. Different things like bike safety programs and the trying to get out information to the public with little sayings, that are handy and clever, like a go slow and ESCO campaign. People can kind of keep in their mind, we should be slowing down, go slow in Escondido. And then also something that's been handy, and I've noticed them around town, are the signal backplates for visibility, because I know everybody here must have encountered this where the sun, especially as we get to the winter, it seems to be worse. It's at a certain angle and you can't, for the life of you, see the traffic signal color or even the traffic signal at all, let alone if it's green, yellow, or red in front of you, because the sun's at that angle now. So these back plates have been put behind the signals, so we can see the signal and the color stands out, and that's helpful to when the sun's at that certain angle, later on in the afternoon and early evening. And then at the end, Councilman Morosco, he was asked a question, and he's like, can you just tell me for sure, is it legal now to jaywalk? Is jaywalking not illegal anymore? Or, I don't want to say jaywalking. Well, jaywalking is now off the books. Officers can't stop someone for jaywalking. That's not a offense anymore to be able to jaywalk, and he just wanted to confirm that, so I just thought it. But I think we all probably know that jaywalking can no longer be enforced. That was taken off the books. So, and that's a summary pretty much of the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to make one comment on when you were talking about the number of DUIs down. Luckily, I don't drink anymore. I gave that up many years ago, but one of the things that I would find helpful would be my car. My car has a lot of technology, and it will not allow me to do any weaving on the road, and if I wanted to, I could even tell, take me home, and it will take me home. So
You have one of those smart cars.
yeah, but you know what? It makes it a whole lot safer, at least for me.
Well, that's really good. That's going to play with the statistics then in the next few years as far as with technology really being out there like that. Any other comments or anything? Okay, then I imagine at this point then we'll probably be turning it over to staff for item number 6.
Before we do go forward, I think maybe these are a couple of points of order that maybe we're missing. I know normally with agendas, we have an approval of agenda. Also on the agenda, we would normally have spot for Transportation Commissioner member comments and stuff, and the agenda just seems to be missing a few items here, and maybe for next time, we can make sure it's a little bit more complete and have those things.
Yeah, it does look like a short meeting today on the agenda.
But just
Right.
normal agenda items.
Right, needs to be beefed up for next time. Okay, all right. So
Thank you.
let me make a note of that. Okay. Well, given what Commissioner Durney said, is there any other feedback or anything we'd like to give at this point from the commissioners? Okay. All right, then, if it works out, then we'll go on to item number 6, the comprehensive active transportation strategy, crosswalk policy comparison to region.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Ed Alberto, City Traffic Engineer, to present on our crosswalk policy. Just some background on this. So last April, at our last April commission meeting, from public comment, there were some questions regarding our crosswalk policy in comparison to the City of San Diego crosswalk policy, from which the commission had directed staff to come back in October and give a presentation on our crosswalk policy. Given the timing and with us kicking off our comprehensive active transportation strategy and having our consultant Fair and Peers online with us, who has an expertise in pedestrian policy, we worked with them to gain some examples of other agencies that they've done pedestrian policies with for us to be able to sort of gain some feedback from all of you on things that you see that you may want to have us consider incorporating into our policy as we're going through our comprehensive active transportation strategy. And we'd come back to present to you our evaluation of your recommendations to see what updates we can do. So in summary today, we'll just quickly go over, why is policy needed, the timeline of different crosswalk policies, the types of warrants. We'll go over our City of Escondido policy, how it compares to the City of San Diego, look at a process flow and some common criteria, and then kind of open it up to feedback. So why the need for policy? So, we don't want to indiscriminately just place marked crosswalks all over the city, or just to place it by request without having done some evaluation to ensure that where we do place them does reduce risk to the pedestrians. I found this animation online that sort of looks at some of the risk to pedestrians for crosswalks. And this is what's called a multiple threat crash, when you have a pedestrian trying to cross a multi-lane roadway. So I'll just play this real quickly for you guys. Sorry. I don't know where the volume went. Sorry for the technical delay here. Okay, everything has frozen.
Pardon me. You know if this is a YouTube video?
It is YouTube video. It was embedded.
Where's the slideshow button on this guy?
There we go. Thank you.
Multiple threat crashes. Multiple threat crashes happen when a driver in one lane yields to a pedestrian crossing the street, but the driver in the next lane does not. The vehicle in the first lane often blocks both the second driver's view of the pedestrian and the pedestrian's view of the second driver. Aerial view of a multiple threat crash. Pedestrian view of a multiple threat crash. Driver view of a multiple threat crash.
And so it was a good animation. I've seen actual videos of pedestrians being hit by vehicles in certain similar situations, which can become very graphic and hard to see. But I mean, these types of collisions are the reasons why we, scrutinize and analyze to evaluate locations for crosswalks. So just some history. In 1972, the city of San Diego conducted one of the largest pedestrian safety studies at the time. They took 5 years of collision data and looked at over 400 intersections in the city of San Diego. And based on that data, they interpreted that more pedestrians are hit in marked crosswalks, which created this idea of false sense of security, and which ultimately led to a lot of agencies removing marked crosswalks. And then in 1975, the city of Escondido adopted our traffic safety policies as well as our crosswalk warrants, creating our basic and point system. In 1990, City of San Diego also revised their comprehensive pedestrian crossing policies, and then 25 years later, did a citywide pedestrian risk analysis to validate their warrants through their warrant system. Following the City of San Diego's update in 2015, the City of Escondido updated our policy, modeling it after San Diego. And then now in 2023, as we're going through our comprehensive active transportation strategy, we'd like to be able to open it up and gain some feedback and see if there's opportunity to add on or revise our crosswalk policy. So the type of warrants that we've seen are the basic and point warrants that are used by the City of Escondido and San Diego, and we found from our samples from Fair and Peers, City County of Denver, Pittsburgh, California, Port Orchard, Washington, Oakland, and Salinas, California use sort of a process flow chart for their crosswalk warrants. So for the City of Escondido, we have a basic warrant, which is the minimum requirements that a location has to meet to be considered for a crosswalk. And once it meets those minimum qualifications, we go into a point warrant system where the location characteristics need to meet a minimum number of points in order to move forward to have a crossing treatment evaluated. So our basic warrants look at pedestrian volumes, the approach speed, the distance to nearest controlled crossings, visibility of the pedestrians, if there's illumination, and that it's accessible to all users. From there, we have our point warrant system looks at the pedestrian volume, so 11 through 100 pedestrians, that's above our minimum, and assign points at higher levels of pedestrian volume. We do include a latent pedestrian demand function to this. If it's determined that there could potentially be latent pedestrian demand at the location, then the pedestrian volume would be kind of multiplied by 1.3 to increase the volume. Then there's some general conditions that are assigned points. If it's greater than 600 feet for the nearest controlled ped bike crossing, the crosswalk would better position pedestrians to be seen by motorists. If there's a bus stop within 100 feet of the crosswalk, if it establishes the mid-block crossing to channelize the flow of pedestrians, and some other related factors. Also, there's the gap time warrant. This is the number of available gaps between vehicles where a pedestrian would have time to safely cross the street. The city of San Diego statistical study modified their warrant to change the point scoring system for this from sort of a linear line that goes increases in points as the number of gaps increases to more of a bell-shaped curve where 3 to 4 gaps in a 5-minute period would be more optimal for pedestrian and safety. And the reasoning behind that was statistically they found that when there's no gaps, heavy traffic, they feel like it increased pedestrian risk trying to cross the roadway, whereas when there's long durations of gaps, then drivers typically aren't expecting pedestrians to cross and are more complacent and tend to increase pedestrian risk. So looking at Escondido versus San Diego with regard to pedestrian volume, for the San Diego warrant, they look at the volume of pedestrians from 10 to greater than 50. The reasoning behind that was, and I'm only able to provide information because I ended up being the project manager on the City of San Diego crosswalk warrant. So from what I recall from this study, when we were talking about the pedestrian volume, the idea was, once you reach a certain number of pedestrians, it's just considered a lot of pedestrians. And how often do you have a location in the city that has, 26 to 50 or 50 or greater pedestrians? And that's how the city of San Diego sort of condensed their volume warrant. So in Escondido, the points are distributed, 2 through 10, over a greater volume of pedestrians. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the city of Escondido does have a latent demand function to the pedestrian counts, whereas city of San Diego, they have, in lieu of doing physical counts, if the location meets these three criteria, then these points would be assigned to it in lieu of pedestrian volume points. For the general condition, the city of Escondido has 5 conditions that are looked at and given points, whereas the city of San Diego has 6 conditions at more total points available. I believe the one condition that San Diego has that is not in the Escondido one is the location within a quarter mile of pedestrian attractors and generators. And so from what we found from our sample cities is rather than doing a point warrant system, they look at it straight from criteria and follow a flow chart to do a process flow, getting from, does it meet these minimum criteria and what's the fastest path to marking a crosswalk for evaluation for treatments. So the city and county of Denver, their minimum criteria would be, 300 feet or further from the nearest enhanced crossing. They're looking at ADT greater than 1,500 vehicles per day, and if the location has curb ramps or if curb ramps could be installed. From there, it goes on to see if it serves a school, park trail, other pedestrian generators, and then that it meets site distance requirements. From there, they approve the location for marked crosswalk and evaluate for treatments. The city of Salinas has a similar flow chart where they actually look at the pedestrian volumes to see that there's 20 or more pedestrians in 2 hours. And again, if it's located at least 300 feet or more away from another marked or protected crosswalk, and that pedestrians can be visible given a stopping site distance. So the process flow is sort of a more simplified approach to determining if a location warrants a crosswalk. And some of the common criteria across these different examples are looking at pedestrian volume, approach speed, distance to the nearest controlled or marked crosswalk, ensuring visibility, that there's street lighting at the location, that there's ADA accessibility, looking at the traffic volume, distance to pedestrian generators, attractors, and latent demand built in. From there, I'm just going to open it up to feedback from the commission.
Very good presentation. Thank you. Okay, and this was just a presentation, right? There's no motion or anything on it, just information.
No, there's no motion.
Right, okay.
It was just information provided to you, and it's just to see if the commission or public wanted to have any input as to, hearing what our crosswalk policy and our warrants, what that entails. If there was, if you heard anything as far as the process flow or any of the criteria that.
Sure. Is there a consideration that we're looking at going to process flow, or are we still okay with where we are and what we've got working? While it may not be the simplest decision tree, works, so don't fix it.
I think at this time we're open to suggestions.
Okay.
I think it's interesting, like you said, that the point system, the basic warrant and the point system, I think works really well. But I certainly see the virtue, especially from a public viewpoint, of being able to look at a flow chart. And even if we took our basic warrant and our point system and essentially graphically made it look like a flow chart, that it's easier for just your common person to look and say, this is how the city is looking at it, rather than going through the more detailed. Right.
I'll also say that when you have those simpler choices, it may also be a little bit more open to interpretation, and that then opens the door for a lot more feedback as to what someone else thinks should be there.
It's true. That's actually what I thought as far as the pedestrian generator. Like, is there a list of what qualifies as a pedestrian generator versus what doesn't? Because you start thinking, well, does the library, yeah.
Yeah, and
Obviously school, there's big ones that are obvious, but then when you get to further down,
and definitely if pedestrian attractors, generators become a criteria, there would definitely be, a list of qualifying attributes to define what that is.
I think as we get to the size of the city of Denver, Pittsburgh, or Oakland, we should revisit this. Seriously, I do think it's great to look at it simpler, but I think we've got something that so far works, and I don't see any need to change it to do what other people are doing just for the sake of it. Just make it easier, but that's my thought.
Great.
I think the only suggestion that I had that I actually really appreciated was looking at the PED volumes. And I know Escondido right now just looks at just the peak hour, and the other cities have included both a factor or like a multiplier if it's a high volume of children or elderly. I think that can be really valuable, as well as looking at multiple hours. And especially we've been talking about how COVID has changed people's habits and their timelines, and it may be that you don't have one peak hour where people are going downtown, but if over a day you've now got a lot more pedestrian demand, I think building something like that in where you're looking at kind of an aggregate volume over a longer time period.
Thank you for that. Okay, then if there's nothing further on that item, we'll move on to item number 7. Okay.
Mr. Mark Scavarocco. I hope I didn't say that totally wrong.
Yeah.
I obviously brought this to you guys 6 months ago, and so that's why I'm curious about this. And the reason this came up was because I was actually looking at an actual intersection, and I had contacted our engineering department asking them about the library intersection at 2nd and Calmia. And that they were very kind, and they actually ran that intersection through this analysis. And if you run that intersection, which arguably I think most of you would agree, intersection from the library to our downtown, like Esco Gelato, that's like my wife takes our infant to like baby lap sit on Wednesdays, and that that's something that she would love to do. If you look at that intersection using Escondido's policy, we fail the points warrant system. It doesn't warrant an intersection. And if you guys could pull up on the desktop, I have a picture of that intersection. While I was driving over here, I took Calmia, because that's the way I get to City Hall, and there was a woman in her 60s or 70s that was waiting to cross that intersection. This one right here, 3 lanes. Most cars are traveling here 45, 50 miles an hour, I know, because that's what the road kind of encourages you to do when you're at that width. San Diego's policy, we passed with flying numbers to put in a crosswalk at this intersection. I think we have 6 extra points. And I know Escondido's technically has a latent demand, a multiplier of 1.3. That at best will get you 2 more points using the point warrant system. You go from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8. If you use San Diego's analysis, you get an additional 10 points by the fact that you have a tractor, you have a pedestrian pathway, and there's another point there. If you go to the comparison chart, I show a side-by-side of all of the policies. So that's San Diego on the right, Escondido on the left. If you look at the bottom of those columns, we have an extra 8 points in San Diego that are available that Escondido doesn't have available. So essentially, I would encourage you guys, whether we look at a flow chart model or if we look at continuing with the points warrant system, either with the current numbers or looking at San Diego's numbers, we need to take a look at a real intersection. And if the library doesn't pass Escondido's, with all due respect, I would say our policy isn't working for us, because here we have kids, we have senior citizens that are looking to cross there, and our own point warrant system doesn't allow for us to have a crosswalk there. So, I would love to hear your discussion around those points. I think public comment is usually before the discussion. So if there's any further thought on that from your perspective, I'd love to hear, because that's an intersection my family and other families in our neighborhood would love to see controlled with a pedestrian crosswalk. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the only thing I'd have to say on that, and I don't want to discourage at all the desire for eventually getting some kind of a crosswalk there, but when we were talking about that decades ago, that false sense of security that maybe we could get in crosswalks, so I just want to throw that out, that if for some reason our system doesn't condone or warrant a crosswalk there, that there is always that false sense of security, that the crosswalk's there, and that these cars that are traveling 45 or 50 are going to be able to stop for the person in the crosswalk. So I just wanted to throw that out, since that is like you said, 45, 50 mile an hour cars traveling there, but not to lessen, the desire for further looking into a crosswalk at that intersection.
I just want to add that once a location does meet our warrants, the next step in the evaluation process is to look at what kind of treatments would be required in order to make that a lower risk pedestrian crossing. So even though it's a multi-lane roadway, it would need to be evaluated to see what additional treatments may be needed or what kind of project would it require.
All right. That sounds good. That's very reasonable. Yeah.
If I could too, I want to point out that this is just a very good example, timely example of the kinds of things that we're wanting to do with the active transportation strategy. We do have a number of policies that were originally drafted in the mid-'70s, and one of our consultants' charges is to look at those and see whether or not they need to be updated. we had asked them to specifically look at this a little bit ahead of time, but it's just a good example of what we ought to be doing, or what we need to be doing. But I think in this case, Ed's feeling was that let's present to you what we have, let's present to you what San Diego's has, and then what other cities are doing. So we're not here to make decisions tonight. We're here to kind of bring that whole topic up to you. And honestly, over the next year, we're going to be looking at quite a few more. And we'll come back to you and bounce ideas across, back and forth, as we make that progress. One thing I want to say before we walk too far away from it is that, and I use, everybody that I work with has heard this expression, and I'll share it with you, but it wasn't mine, somebody else, I'm stealing it from somebody else, but basically, when you talk about the idea of latent demand, we used to do this when I worked for a state department of transportation. They would make decisions about where to put sidewalks based on how many people were walking alongside the road, even though there wasn't a sidewalk. They call them a cow path or a goat path or something. And somebody in that discussion said, you don't build a bridge based on the number of people that are swimming across the river. So one of my feelings about this, a lot of policy decisions from decades ago, is that we've had a lot of changes in technology. Today, we can look at latent demand and look at things like pedestrian generators and origins and destinations. We don't need to have physical counts, based on the number of people are crossing a roadway where they don't feel comfortable crossing. You really don't want your kids to cross unescorted across the streets. You don't want your seniors that are walking 3 feet per second to have to cross the street where there isn't any kind of assistance. So we're taking advantage of the technology. We're going to be taking advantage of the technologies we have now and using that to move forward for the city. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, good. I'll be back. Okay. Okay, then we will move on to item number 7, status update on various traffic-related projects throughout the city.
Before I get into these slides, I wanted to assure you that we're not going to go through all 22 projects here in these slides. I think we've picked about 5 or 6 or so, and just some recent shots of progress on those. But and I won't even go through this whole list, but there are 22, and hopefully you've taken a few minutes to read about those, and it's actually kind of fun for us to give you that, to give you this presentation, this staff report, because it really helps us recognize what kind of progress we are making around the city. So that's a good thing. Some of the pictures I wanted to show you are actually quite recent. Palomar Heights is one of them that were on the list. We've got a number of changes transportation related, and as all of you know, it's where the old Palomar Hospital is, but we're making changes to this signal that's on the left, and then you can get a good shot here of actually the sticks going up in the ground. So ultimately, we're going to see about, I think, 510 units in that location. And it'll be really interesting to see in the years to come how those 500 units affect the whole historic downtown area. So I think we'll see a lot of changes from Hickory to the west down into historic on Grand. 7 Creek crossings, we've had a number of discussions about this over the last, year and a half, and I will say that it is pretty close to being totally done. As you remember, there were 7 crossings. There is a signal at Midway, and then there are 7 intersections that have RFBs, and you can see a number of those here. This is actually Harding. You can see the signal's a little bit up ahead, but I took this picture because we've added bike lanes on this section for the first time. We actually had 2 lanes each direction. We took that down to 1. So you can see that on the left slide. This lower left, great shot of a refuge median that's there now. People can walk halfway across the street, pause, especially if they're elderly. They can pause and wait for another gap to go the other direction. There's a button in the center island where they can push the button again if they haven't had enough time to get across. This lower right slide gives you a good sense of what they did also. We actually pushed the crossing out into the street a little bit. And in the left side is just the through traffic, and in this right lane is the bike lane, and then the pedestrians stand in this location. So they're really positioned well to be able to be seen by cars. And I also want to mention that one of the things that we saw in the animated animation that Ed has shown is this multiple threat. Now, in this case, we don't really have multiple threats anymore, but I wanted to point out that these shark's teeth are an advanced yield bar. Used to be that we would put this bar about 4 feet from the crosswalk. And when you've got 2 cars approaching, as the video showed, you have a chance of obscuring the view. The new design, better design, is that you move that bar 20 feet ahead or all the way up to 50 feet ahead. And when cars stop at that stop bar, then they have plenty of opportunity to see somebody ahead when they didn't before. This is a number of shots here of Midway. You can see we actually have a traffic signal there. The gentleman is crossing in the crosswalk. You can see the advanced stop bar in front. Lower left, you can see the pedestrian refuge island that's in this upper center pedestrian refuge island, the bike lanes that were added. And then a view from the trail itself. As you walk up, I didn't have that slide, I don't think. No, I didn't. But there's a push button on the right. You push the button, the light turns green, and then you can walk across and a far higher level of comfort than you had before. So that's a good thing, and that has been operational for the last couple of months. I will say that when all of these first came online, we had some concerns about people not stopping. And I think we had at least one day where the police chief went out there and pretended to be a pedestrian, and then we had some officers sitting downstream, and some folks got some awards for failing to stop. So this is a pretty cool project here, the Juniper Safe Routes to School. It was an active transportation program grant. You can see in the upper left-hand corner what that street looked like before. Literally no sidewalks. And you can see in the lower center here, that same section with a paved bike lane, a sidewalk in the lower right. You can see that new sidewalk. It's about a half a block from this section that we see in the upper left. So pretty nice improvement. Bill, do you have a question? Oh, okay. A few more shots of Juniper. Here's a before shot of no bike lanes, and to the right here we've got the same thing with a buffered bike lane. We've got a shot down here of Juniper and Felicita, and you can see that we've added bike lane a through bike lane for the southbound travel. Added a bike lane in the center, lower center, a buffered bike lane, another bike lane. So some really very good improvements there. That literally was just paved and opened for traffic about a month and a half ago. Villages, Canopy Grove, a couple of things. I wanted to point out that this is a active rectangular flashing beacon. You can see that a pedestrian can come up on the right-hand side, push a button, and the lights flash, and then they can get to the median refuge area again, push the button again. This is an interim shot. This section of roadway will actually be taken down to one lane each direction with buffered bike lanes in this area where the other traffic lane used to be. That'll be done sometime in the next 6 to 12 months or something, but toward the end of construction. Another shot of the villages. Yes, Bill?
I do have a question on that previous slide. This is just a totally random question on this, but when you put in the bike lane and stuff, when people have garbage, where are they supposed to put that? Is it okay to put the garbage cans in the bike lane that's there, or? Because I'm seeing that here, and you're talking about putting in a bike lane. I'm wondering, where do people put their garbage can?
You know, I had a good friend, colleague that I worked with for many years, and he liked to talk about that we need to be better about sharing. And I think that's one of those instances.
Okay.
That one day a week, you're going to have, we try to make sure that bike lanes are 6 feet wide. And lately, we've been trying to add buffers. If somebody puts out a trash can up against the face of the curb and it sticks out, 2.5 feet, there still should be a foot or two, or 2 feet or more for somebody in a bike to be able to ride by. It's a good thing to have to share like that. Let's not park in that spot, for 12 hours. But if you need to, I had a good shot actually on Midway that I took the other day, and the bus literally was stopping in the bike lane to drop off people.
Of course.
That was the only option they had.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not put in something that benefits somebody, 98% of the time for that 2% of the time.
Oh, I wasn't looking to say
occupied.
for
No,
any
I
reason
wasn't- I
that
wasn't
it wouldn't go in, but I'm just wondering, well, what do people do? I mean, I'm always told, don't put anything in the bike lane. So is that where I put in my trash? It's,
Right.
like I said, random question just based on what I saw
No,
there.
it's a valid question, yeah, so, good. So this is the second roundabout that they're getting ready to open on Country Club Lane, and this is at La Brea. This is kind of a shot looking to the south, another shot here looking to the kind of the northeast. They're going to be putting in the striping. They'll be opening up the lanes. The lower right picture is basically the identical configuration of the roundabout on Country Club that is open now on Golden Circle. So this roundabout at La Brea will look like the one in the lower right as soon as they finish the landscaping and a lot of other things. So on its way, and I think it'll be a good facility. Creek crossings at Quince and Tulip. You may recall that there was an RFB at this location at Quince. In fact, you'll see that it's literally still there. We asked the contractor to work around it. We didn't want to take it out. So you can see here that the future signals are not yet activated, and the RFB is still in place. As soon as the day that they tilt those heads around and turn them on, they'll pull out the RFB, and we'll use that in some other location around the city. So it'll serve the city users twice. So We already had a median in this location. We did some ADA improvements on both sides of the, on both of the sidewalks. Same thing here at on Tulip. This is a shot of that crossing a year ago from Street View, and you can see that there is no pedestrian refuge area. There are no RFBs, there are no beacons. There you are kind of left to your own devices to cross that street. So what we've provided is going to be so much better than we had before. We have a signal, we have a median refuge island, we have it, see it in the center. Obviously still under construction, but they're supposed to be doing striping at this location at Quince next week, and we should be able to turn both of those signals on in the next 2 weeks, and people will enjoy using those. A couple of shots on them. I thought these were kind of fun. These, as all of our new signals have, they have cameras, and those cameras are pointing down at the lanes so they can tell when cars are there to give them a green signal. The gentleman here in the bucket truck is actually aligning the camera to point it down at, you can see on this right slide, those are little pixel boxes that you can see from those cameras, and this is literally a laptop that's inside the traffic signal cabinet, and he's aligning that camera to look at each one of those little boxes, and it can tell whether there's a car in that place. Ultimately, there's also a box here for bike lanes on the right-hand side. And these folks, and a couple of folks that work for the city here, is one of our key electricians here, Larry Pardue. Those are kind of giving direction to the guy up in the boom truck to make those alignments. So it's kind of a fun shot. Yes, Bill?
Just to comment on that, we've got one of those camera detection units over by Del Lago Academy. And if I stop when I'm walking my dog, if I stop in the middle of the intersection, it thinks that there's a vehicle there and goes ahead and makes the light green.
Really?
Yeah, it's that sensitive.
But it shouldn't be thinking that you're a car.
No, it's just, it's me as a person.
All right.
And it's recognizing me. I could just stop in the middle of the road, in the middle of the path, in the middle of the crosswalk, and it says, okay, then it goes green.
We can send our electricians out there to take a look at the zones.
So last but not least, we've all been following the Citricado Parkway extension, the bridge that wasn't ever there. It's coming along. This is a shot from June of 2023. You can see the bridge being constructed in the distance, and if you look a little bit farther up the road, you'll see the existing section of Citricado. On the left-hand side up here is Stone Brewing. And then a little bit farther on, you can't see it, but Palomar Hospital is up there on the crest of the hill. So it's pretty exciting to see this moving along. Same shot a month later. They're getting ready to pour the bridge deck. And another shot here. This is a shot just from a week or two ago. You can see the bridge is coming along. Looks like they're getting ready to pour the railing on top. But you can see it's a fairly shallow bridge underneath. There's also an extension of the Escondido Creek Trail that comes down and roughly ends around this bridge. So that trail is being extended about a half a mile as well as part of this, as part of the project, the Creek Trail expansion project that's described in here. So again, kind of a highlight of some of the projects that we think are particularly exciting to see happen, and wanted to share those with you. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
This was an item, I think, in the agenda, but like I said, you couldn't address all 26 of them or however there were. But on the last page, It's talking about Juniper Street lighting in Old Escondido. I've seen this before on the agenda, and I kind of wanted to ask about it, so since I'm seeing it again, maybe I'll ask it again. But I'm just a little concerned with, the special atmosphere that Old Escondido has, that whatever lighting improvements are done on Juniper between 5th and 9th, it looks like, and 2nd and 5th, that it won't take away from the special atmosphere that's down there. Like if the lighting's changed to LED, that just gives such a different feeling. The LED lights, I mean, I know that they're necessary probably for safety. It's, considered a modern upgrade, but I actually like the way the old lights, I like the lighting of the old lights better personally. But this as far as looks and ambiance goes. So I just was wondering if you had any information on that street lighting, if it would kind of interrupt the delicacy that, the delicate nature that we have in that historic district, how it would affect it.
Thank you
Julie
for that
always
question.
has.
Chair Hatley, I appreciate that question. Julie Procopio, City Engineer. The lighting was actually a request from the Old Escondido neighborhood. It's a CDBG funded project. And it is going to be designed consistent with the character of the neighborhood with respect to using the lights similar to the green lighting that you see down Grand Avenue. So that is the plan. It will be, it'll fit with the context of the community. I believe that they are LED lights. We are using LED lights throughout Grand. We do have some flexibility with respect to the color temperature of the lights, but we also need to comply with the dark sky requirements. So we in this area don't have the very bright white LEDs. Generally, we have a little bit lower, more yellower lights, but we do use LED because they are much more energy efficient and they last longer. So I think people equate LED with it must be one thing or the other. We've thought about that, but we do want to use the energy efficient technology. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, no, thank you, and I certainly appreciate that. I live off of La Honda going up to Dixon Lake, and the lights were changed out maybe a year or two ago up there, and I mean, I don't care for them. I mean, they're just very bright. It looks like a car headlight. Thank goodness for my house it doesn't shine directly into a window, but a neighbor of mine said they have to close the blind. They can't keep it open at night because the light just shines into their house like a car headlight all night long. So it's just, they're very bright. And so if anything could be done for like a warmer light, that's more conducive to Old Escondido, that would be great. And yeah.
Yes, and we have the ability to make adjustments to lighting in place. So I'd encourage your neighbor to send us a message, and we can ask our Public Works team to see what we might be able to do to improve that situation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I concur because I've seen that happen. We had some new LEDs put in near my house, and boy, were they bright, and everyone was like, oh my, and it didn't take very long for that to get changed down. It's like it's got 48 bulbs, and they end up turning on 24 instead, and it's like everything's fine.
That's good to know. I'll tell my neighbor. Good.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just have a comment, though. I see after the Juniper Street lighting on that last page on staff report, the Bear Valley Parkway widening project, I'm looking forward to Bear Valley Parkway being widened. It's the way it comes down and narrows, and the traffic backup is almost intolerable at commute time, evening commute time. So looking forward to any relief in that area. That's great.
A busy road.
All right.
Bill, regarding your, I'm sorry, Commissioner, regarding your comment about adding back in the item for commissioners to make statements, we'll take care of that next time.
Cool, thank you.
And I did want to apologize for the cover sheet. For some reason, the cover sheet is not something we can edit. It has to be done by Municode. It's somewhere. We, I think, started that request a little bit too late. So next time we'll get that fixed. So
No worries, no worries.
All right.
Okay, anything else? Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Williams. Okay, then, if there's nothing else, and perhaps it's time for, or do we have any comments?
I do have a quick comment, maybe not necessarily for the Traffic and Safety Commission, but for the city of Escondido in general. I had seen a place over on Valley Parkway at the end of where Del Diablo and Del Dios are. Del Lago Academy, there's the, used to be Palomar Continuing Care. It's where Del Dios used to go through before it became Valley. There's like a little tiny, I'd almost say pocket park, but it's not a park, but it's just a little piece of city land that has been overgrown for years and years and years and years. And I used the Escondido Reported app. In addition to talking to the school district too, because the school district owns part of it and the city owns some. The city took care of it. They took care of their side of it. It looks freaking great. The school district, when I brought it up to them, they took care of their side of it and it looks great. And I just want to say thanks to everyone, school district and city of Escondido, even though it wasn't Traffic and Safety Commission, but city of Escondido, you guys did great. Thank you.
That's great. I know exactly which little triangular parkette you're talking about, ending at the cul-de-sac there. It used to be a through street, and yeah, that's good news. Well, it's good news that things worked out and now it looks good again. That's great. Okay, any other comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead and have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second?
Great, and let's all vote on our new devices here if we can. Okay, if our devices all voted correctly, then we're adjourned.